Hey, what's up? It's time for a new first on my channel. I'm going to do an album review. Do I want to primarily do song covers or political segments or album reviews on this channel? My answer to that is all of the above. I want to do it all, man. I just love making videos. But more than any of that stuff, my ultimate goal is having my second album, Ugly Living, completed to share with all of you. But we don't know when that's happening. So for now, I'm going to do my first ever album review of the album Happier by the band Volumes. I think this is a perfect album for me to do my first review on because this is a band I feel I could be very objective about because they're a band I've had my ups with, my downs with. They've made things that I would swear by to this day as some of my favorite songs ever, and they've had parts in their career where I was almost off them completely, and everything in between. So I'm not a fanboy, I'm not a hater, I'm right there in between. I feel like they've done amazing things, they've done alright things, and I just think I could view this work in the most objective way possible. The parts of their career that I wasn't so wowed about is when Michael Barr left the band. They did an album called Different Animals that I just thought was lazy, and the parts that weren't lazy kind of went into some top 40 R&B type stuff that I'm just not into, and I wasn't digging it. I don't really think that the guy they had as their frontman, Gus, had what it takes to lead a band, and their EP that they came out with after that was a little bit better, but it still just didn't really have the power to put Volumes back front and center on my radar like they did with their first two big releases, Via and No Sleep. And now Michael Barr is back. This band has quite a bit of a backstory. Their primary composer, Diego Farias, passed away at a very young age. So I commend them for picking up the pieces and getting back together to make this album with Michael Barr and Mike Terry are the vocalists for this album, and they both have incredible vocal chops. So I was very much looking forward to seeing what these two would look like in like a vocal tag team. So, all right, that's enough. I'm gonna do this album track by track, and then I'll like summarize it at the end. A lot of people don't really like track by track reviews, and I don't really understand that because I think those are the best reviews because you get to dissect each song, and no part of the album that matters is left unnoticed in the review, and I just think that's the best way to do it, so that's how I'm going to do it. Alright, track number 1 is called FBX. I'm not sure what that means, but it's the opener to this album. It has a great electronic intro. It gets you pumped up for what's coming. What ends up coming is the concern I had with this album before going into it the first time. And I've listened to this album about 15 times now. Like, I wanted to make sure it had all the growing power and everything I was going to get out of it before I made a review. So the worry I had with this album, which this track kind of has in it, is just like the heavy parts, just kind of plodding along in a lazy fashion and just not putting a lot of effort into the heavy parts. And that's all this opener really is. I was kind of disappointed with this as an opener. It's not a highlight of the album, and I don't feel it's great for an opener. So that's all I really have to say about that one. Track number 2, Malevolent. This song is a slightly better version of FBX. It still kind of plods along musically with nothing too memorable until the second half of the song. There's some great start-stop bass drum triplets and a nice outro groove with some standout bass guitar work, which you don't hear a lot in metalcore, so it was nice to see the bassist get like his time to shine, and the song was alright. At this point, I was kind of worried about where this album is going. I was also disappointed because Volumes had already released 2 songs prior to this album, Holy Water and Pixelate. That would have been an amazing 1-2 punch to kick this album off in fine style. They are actually better than a few of the songs on this album, and I can't believe they opted to leave them off. The first 2 tracks were alright, but they don't even come close to the impact that having Holy Water and Pixelate as the first 2 tracks would have had. Not only as openers, but they also would have led in much better to the next track, which we're going to get into right now, which is number 3, called Bend. And what a track it is. This is definitely the radio-friendly track of the album. The songwriting is so simple it hurts, but it just works. And we are finally introduced to what makes this album work. The clean singing talents of the 2 mics. That's not to downplay anything the instrumentalists do on this album, but the vocals, specifically when they're more melodic, kind of carry this album. This track kind of brings to mind the new Bad Omens song, The Death of Peace of Mind, in that, yeah, you're not hearing anything new, but it's just so well written. The emotion carries the song. You're going to remember it and go back to it. Bend is the first standout track so far. The next track, Get Enough. This song is kind of like Bend if it had more of the classic Volumes sections in it, like the heavier sections. Like the main hook still is what brings you back more than the heavier sections. But there's some great synth work here to highlight the chorus, and the chorus is what this song runs on. It's a great chorus. The drummer does some great ghost notes in the outro. It's not a bad song. And it follows Bend in being what gets you interested in continuing with this album. Number 5, Lets Me Down. This is the first song on the album where I don't feel like one element is carrying the song. The groovy guitar work is perfect. The drum beats are perfect. The vocals are perfect. The atmosphere is at 110%. This album shines at its brightness, at its brightest, when the emphasis is on the melodic side. I really can't stress that enough. This song hits hard, and if you like this type of metalcore as much as I do, this one will get you right in the feels from start to finish. This is a great track. Lets Me Down, great track. On to number 6, Man on Fire. There are some great drum fills in this one. The outro breakdown is great. But aside from that, this song kind of highlights this album's biggest problem, which is lack of creativity in its heavier scream sections. I don't really have much else to say about this one. Number 7, Waited. Waited is tied for another track that we haven't got to yet on this album as my favorite. The vocals and vocal patterns in the clean singing sections are so perfect. The heavy sections bring back vibes from their second album, No Sleep. It ends a bit abruptly. That's like my issue, and it leads you to think that for the first time in the album they're actually going to change tempo or time signature within the same song, but it just kind of ends, and I was kind of looking for that variety, because so far on the album everything's just kind of followed a basic time signature. Other than that, they did very well here, especially the clean sung sections. Like, all of those are top notch, and this might be my second favorite on the album. Number 8, See You Again. Aside from the issue we're going to hear all through this review, the song never really changes tempo or vibe. But this song kind of reminds me of their first big release, Via. Of all the songs that are straight heavy and nothing else, I'd say this is the best one. It's the classic volume sound. See You Again, great classic track that would have fit right in on Via, and you wouldn't have even known the difference. Number 9, Into You, Hurt, in parentheses. Again, this album hits the hardest in its melodic songs. This is no exception. The intro almost has like a Seven Dust feel to it, and I mean that in the best way possible. Just that the low down-tuned grooves with like the effects. The main hook is great and full of emotion. And then they finally did it. For the first time in this album, they finally did it. They changed tempo and song. They changed vibe. And I love that. The song cuts in and out of great grooves and emotional, clean sung sections, and it's definitely a highlight to this album. Into You, top track. Alright, we got 2 more to go here. So this review is getting a little bit longer than I expected, but there's a lot to talk about with this band and this album. Void, number 10. The main groove of this song is built around. It's great. This song has a lot of good rhythm work between the bass guitar, the rhythm, gent chugs, and the drumming. It's all very complex. There are a couple songs on this album that I would consider kind of like filler-ish, and this is definitely one of them. But out of all of those types of tracks, this one's probably the best. Like, I would actually go back and listen to this one, whereas a couple of the ones that just kind of focus on chugging along, I might not go down to, or go back to. Then we are going to close this album with my favorite track of the whole thing, the title track, Happier. This is the best song, man, hands down. Waited comes close, but this is Volumes bringing the best of everything they do, like the riffs, the best chorus hook, the best transition, just the best everything. The slight auto-tune in the chorus sounds great. It adds a lot of atmosphere, even though we know neither of the two mics really need it. They're amazing singers, but throwing that little electronic auto-tune element into the main hook, it just works. Like, you don't know why, it just does. This whole song, start to finish, is, like, I love when a band puts their best song last. And you don't see that often, but I wish the whole album had this degree of effort put into it. Like, this is like, it sounds like they put more effort into this song and maybe Bend and Waited than some of the other ones. Like, it's like every second counts. The gent grooves, the drum work, everything deserves mention on this song. It's not only my favorite off this album, but possibly one of my favorites that they've ever done. It's just a perfect song. So you would think by this review that I prefer more pop in my metalcore. But that's not the case at all. I like Tony Danza, I like Structures, I like all kinds of chaotic metalcore that don't necessarily have cleans at all. This album just clearly had more effort into those parts, those poppy, melodic, emotional parts, than the heavy sections. I just got that. If every single song was like the first 2 songs of this album, I might not have even made it through it. Like, in my opinion, I wish they would have put Holy Water and Pixelata as openers instead. Because as it is right now, I really don't start getting into this thing until we get to Bend. I think this is a transitional album. I would say that whoever their new guitarist is, who I'm not really sure who it is, it looks like his face isn't even a part of the album cover, so he might be a touring guitarist or somebody new. He has potential to work well in this band, he or she, whoever it may be. My biggest criticism of this album is just lazy or uneventful heavy sections on some songs, but on the strengths of the songs that are straight fire, I'm going to give this thing an 8 out of 10, because when it hits, and it's a sign of great things to come. The 2 mics as a vocal duo, I feel, are better than the previous vocal duo, which was Mike and Gus. I would rate this way above the stuff Volumes did without Michael Barr, but not quite to the level of Via and No Sleep. So I think it's a good transitional album. I think if it becomes a sign of like great things to come, it'll be an album that's regarded highly once it's been out for a couple years. There are many songs I'll go back to on this album. So I hope you like this album review. I will try to do more of these in the future alongside all the other things I want to get done in 2022. I'm not going to pretend I'm a pro at these because this is my first one, but I appreciate you watching, and just know that everything I've stated is just my opinion. You may have heard this album and thought it was the best Volumes album yet, and that's cool, man. I'm all about the difference of opinion. I'm not stating it as fact, and I hope that you enjoyed the review. Thanks for watching.